Hello, Lisa here. Welcome back to my channel, or welcome if this is your first time stopping by. Today we are going to be doing a monthly deck review, which basically means I'm going to share with you all of the tarot and oracle decks I worked with over the month of October and just share my thoughts on them. This is probably going to be a little bit lengthy because I worked with so many things in October. This series is actually inspired by a series I used to do way back in the beginning of my channel called Weekly Deck Reviews. And in Weekly Deck Reviews, I would every week share the decks I worked with that past week, kind of how they were working out. I like sharing the decks I've been working with because I enjoy kind of reporting back in about how things actually are playing out in my practice, because I come on here and share my first impressions of things a lot. I share the things I'm excited about, but I don't often get a chance to report back and be like, this is how it's actually feeling energetically, or here's how it's reading. And I wanted to be able to do that. So that's what we're going to be doing today. Now, today I'm going to also share with you the seasonal bedtime decks I'm working with at the moment, just in a quick recap. I'm also going to be sharing the decks that I work with in my gaming. So those are going to be a quick, probably a shorter thing because I'm using them a little bit differently, and I've talked about those things somewhat recently. But I wanted to be able to include literally everything I worked with in the past month. So I think I'm going to start there. Let's just start with my bedtime stack, my current bedtime stack, because I changed these out more or less seasonally, I guess you could say. So in my bedtime routine, and I have a whole video on my bedtime practice if you want to learn more about that, where I talk about this more in depth. I will link that up in the cards for you and down in the description box if I remember. If not, please remind me and I'm happy to share that. But what I've been doing is incorporating these Seasons of the Witch oracle decks into my bedtime practice. And I really like that because it gives me an opportunity in my day to connect with seasonal energy. And I just really genuinely enjoy that. So I'm currently working with the Lammas Oracle, or was currently working in October with the Lammas Oracle. At Samhain, October 31st, I rolled over and have begun working with the Samhain Oracle. So I'll be speaking about that one later on. And so I just pull a single card from this. I read the message. That's usually all I need to connect in to the seasonal energy that I'm trying to tap into. But I do like dipping into the guidebook and just reading it really quick. There's sometimes just a little extra note that I find makes it easier for me to kind of check in with what the energy is and what it's trying to tell me at the end of my day. So that is the one that I've been working with. Again, I will be rotating in to work with the Samhain Oracle next. Now, this one has been sort of a mainstay, and usually the last card I pull in my bedtime practice, or one of the last, the Faces and Forests Oracle deck by Kat Riles, the creator of the Roots and Wings Oracle. I absolutely adore this. It is so perfect for nighttime reflection for me. What I love about it is it's very connected into nature, so it helps me to sort of tap into those energies at bedtime. And it feels timeless, like it feels seasonless. It sort of works no matter what season I'm in. And so I'll pull a card from here, and there's always a question. And so I will typically journal that question a little bit before I go to sleep. And it's just been really a lovely practice, very nourishing. I haven't gotten bored of this. I haven't felt like it's become too rote or too repetitive. It just feels really nourishing and lovely. So that is maintaining a spot. And again, just one card from this, one card from Seasons of the Witch. And then this deck I have rotated in as, oh, it matches the background. Look at how perfectly it matches my cloth. Holy, I couldn't have, wow, that's really great. Anyways, this is a heavily modified deck, so I'm going to show you that. And this is also an out of print deck, the Wild Messengers Alchemical Tarot by Lola Pickett. This is such a cool deck, but the art itself just left me feeling like I wasn't able to tap into just the incredible message. The guidebook for this deck is just absolutely breathtaking, and is something that I've talked about again and again and again on the channel. Again, everything's out of print. I'm so sorry, but I have really been enjoying this, and I worked with it a lot in October, and I'll probably continue to work with this. Actually, I might be changing out now that we're nearing the last quarter of the year, but I've really enjoyed this. So I will pull a card from this every night and just read the message, and it sort of works a little bit like a invocation and an affirmation. So what I did when I modified this deck is I took a little snippet from the book that was part of the sort of animal invocation. So for example, on the sun card, the part that I wrote down from the book is eagle. Help me to bask in the light of clarity, confidence, and courage so I can radiate my authentic light out into the world. And then I also wrote down a snippet of the animal's response. So that ends up being kind of like an affirmation or a bit of advice from spirit. And so eagle here says, you are on the rise again. ride out the bliss while it is here and radiate your light to others. And man, this is just so cool to work with because of the writings on the cards. It just ends up being really powerful. And this mod took me a long time because I worked on it and I just kept, like, I'm one of those people that will start a project and then take forever to finish it. This was one of those, but I did finish it and it's just been absolutely wonderful to work with. But I do think I'm going to be rotating this out and working with something else for November and December. So, but yeah, really, really have been enjoying this a lot. And if you do have it in your collection, but you have struggled with how to work with it and you have the book, I highly recommend this mod. I know it's scary to modify an out-of-print deck. I mean, but it's made this deck so insanely usable to me and I love it. So if you've struggled with it and you have it and you don't want to let it go, it's just an idea for how you could potentially tap into it. Obviously, once you mark it up, though, it's permanent. And if you're holding on to it as a collector, that's probably not what you're going to want to do. But I was very, very happy to do it. So love that. And then this one is a mainstay. So this is the Unicorn Tarot, and this serves a very specific purpose. I can't remember the author of this deck, but it is the old school Unicorn Tarot, and it looks like this. But the thing that I specifically love about this, and it hits so different than Unicorn's Journey Tarot to me, because in this deck, the unicorn is very much outside of the main character of the card and always seems to appear as a helper, a guide, or a companion. And so I use this to tap into how spirit has assisted me or been present with me during the day that day. And it's always been very on point and beautiful in that context. It's like, wow, how did spirit show up for me today? Or how did the universe show up for me today? And then I see that, or show up with me, or how was spirit assisting me today? And like, look at this. This almost looks like the unicorn is giving the character a nudge over the cliff, right? It's really, when you look at it through that lens, even though the artwork is kind of dated and it's not the favorite way I like to see unicorns depicted, and I had this deck years ago and let it go because I thought it was so cheesy, but once I tapped into how to work with it, it has been such a beautiful part of my practice, and that was true in October as well. I probably won't continue to mention this in the monthly deck reviews now that I've mentioned it because it's not going anywhere. It's going to maintain a part of my bedtime practice, but it is so comforting to sit there, shuffle this deck, and ask that question, like, how have I been supported, nudged, or interacted with by the universe or by spirit today? And it's really, really powerful. Okay, quick peek at my gaming decks that I'm working with currently. So let's talk about these really quick. So in the Baldur's Gate 3 game that I play with Dawn Michelle over on her channel, Amber Laura Plays, this is the one that probably gets the most use. This is the, oh gosh, what's this called? I forget every time. Zeke's Arcana. The Zeke's Arcana. It is a pip deck, but it's a very, very interesting and unique pip deck. But this is actually the deck that I picked, partly because of the hot pink and the hot pink edges and all of that kind of thing. But this is the deck that I picked to represent and to stand in for my character Oblivia. And what's great about that is Oblivia is a character I play in Dawn and my Sunday game. And we're already on our second playthrough with those characters because we sort of see them, we've kind of headcanoned or created story in our minds about those characters that they're kind of on a Groundhog Day loop. And so we just keep getting to play with the same kind of character. What's great about Oblivia is that she helps me tap into sort of the playful chaos energy, and I love that. But we use cards mostly to pull for making combat decisions, and I love looking at this deck all the time. And then oftentimes if there's a lull in the game, or if we're waiting for something, or I don't know, we're reloading, sometimes I'll just pull a card just because and then take in the message while I'm playing the game, and it's a lovely little practice. It's definitely my less deep and spiritual practice, of course, because I'm just playing, really. But it makes me so happy, and I just love the vibes of this deck. It feels like Oblivia to me now, and I could see myself incorporating this more elsewhere, especially if we ever retire those characters, and just like having this be the deck that helps me tap into that sort of empowering chaos energy. Love that. And then in the other Sunday game that Dawn and I are playing with Krista of Krista Chronicles and Allie of Totaro, my character's name is Kali, and she's definitely a lot darker than other characters I've played and more hell-bent on like kind of destruction. Like she doesn't like boys, and she's just hell on wheels, but like so I picked the Deviant Moon Tarot to represent her energy. And so I've been pulling these cards during our Tavs and Tarot game, which is every other Sunday. So we alternate the game with Oblivia and Dawn's character Jinx with the Tavs and Tarot game with Krista and Allie, where I'm playing Callie and Dawn's character's Elwyn. And then we have Elfira and, oh gosh, I totally blanked on the names, but we have their two characters too. Forgive me, you two. I'm so sorry. I know them. I actually have one of the, I even put the pictures of our characters from that game into like desktop wallpapers at my job because I think all the characters in that game are just damn cute and I just love it. Anyway, Deviant Moon has been great for working with that character. It's been fun. And then when I pull cards for Astarion in the game, who most people know that I'm obsessed with, I will pull from this deck, which is the Low Scarabeo, what is this called? Notoria? Notoria deck? Yeah, Notoria. And I do also have the Goetia deck, which I pulled previously when I was playing a Dark Urge character, so that's kind of matched up with her. I do have a hard time. I will say one of the things that kind of annoys me about this deck, as much as I love the artwork and I think it really works for Astarion, I often, like, for some reason, maybe in the low lighting that I play in, I have a hard time sometimes reading the titles on the cards. And because the artwork is so going its own way in so many places, I sometimes can't immediately tell what card I'm looking at, but I really love tapping into this for Astarion's energy, and it just totally makes sense to me now. And yeah, so I've used this a little bit because in our Oblivia game, I'm also partnered up with Astarion in that game, so I get to play with him. And that's fun. So I pull cards for him with this deck. But yeah, now that I've kind of touched on these, I probably won't mention them again until they change. Another cool practice that I have been doing, and I probably have been doing this through, well, ever since I got this deck, typically every Sunday, I pull a card from the Tarot of Her. I have been absolutely loving this. I do think it's currently out of stock. I don't know that it's like permanently out of print. I'm hoping they're going to do a reprint because this sold out very quickly after the Kickstarter, and this deck is so special. I love it so much. But what I find really lovely about this is that kind of like the Roots and Wings, or not Roots and Wings, but the, oh, what's that? I just said it. The Faces and Forests deck I talked about earlier. This deck feels like it connects me into the earth and specifically my relationship with nature, but in a more honed in way, my relationship with sort of Mother Earth and experiencing nature. And I really love the gentle and divine tone of this deck, and I love that it's round. I love that in the guidebook I have it like got a little flag on it. There's a chart. I refer to this every time I pull a card just to see what phase of the moon I'm in based on how the card is pointed. And I have a whole deep dive on this deck, and I am obsessed with this. I love it so much. It is so nourishing and wonderful, and it feels deeply spiritual when I work with it. So this is literally like the polar opposite of like a deck I use for gaming. Like this feels very serious and weighty and like I'm communicating with the divine when I work with this. And so it's just become a part of my spiritual practice. This deck has a very specific purpose in place, and I just absolutely adore sort of harmonizing the messages I get from whatever card I've pulled that day with just thinking about, I don't know, my place in the universe and my spiritual path and all that stuff. And it's just been really fabulous. So really still enjoying this. And again, since this is ongoing, unless something changes, I won't have much more to say about this one on future monthly deck reviews too, because I'm just going to continue to work with it. But if I trade it out for something else in the future, I will definitely let you know. Okay, I have a couple more, again, like sort of unique things. And then I'm going to get into like the ones I was working with like steadily throughout the week. So of course, look at this lovely bag. This was gifted to me. I have been working with Unicorn's Journey Tarot on the regular, and that was true in in October. Oh my gosh, what month is it? In October as well. It's kind of weird actually, but I am the type of person where I like to work with the guidebook, and I didn't think that would be true of my own deck because how weird is that? But like, but like imagine that in the writing process, sometimes it feels almost like you're channeling or something, and I could not tell you what I wrote for any card without looking it up. Like I could not tell you. And so it's actually kind of magical sometimes to read these self-worth messages because they don't feel like they're coming from myself, even though I know that I wrote them. Does that make sense? It feels like it's coming from, I don't know, maybe it's my higher self. Maybe that's a way that I sort of conceptualize it. But I really love pulling a card or two just when I need a lift or I need to check in about something and just see what the self-worth message is or see what the overall point is. And I also like to have this. I always have it like next to where I sit and work in the living room because I like to be able to shuffle it randomly when I'm just like idle, because it's just, obviously this was my perfect deck. So it's my perfect card stock. Like everything is like just exactly how I want it. And of course I know this deck so intimately, and it comes from such a deep personal place in me that it's always speaking to that same place in me. And I just have such an incredible experience with this that it's like it's my main go-to deck for just about anything, for just like random everyday sort of things, and or when I need to kind of check in with that energy. I find it really, really great. So very excited about this. Actually, at the time I'm filming this, I am hoping as soon as I'm done filming this video, I'm going to hopefully finally get my product photos done of this deck so that I can get it listed in my Etsy shop. So stay tuned. If you've been waiting for this to be listed, it's coming, I promise. I have some technical things to take care of. I've got to get the listings prepped and make sure my fulfillment center is locked and loaded and ready to go. But yeah, loving this, loving it. And it's been so cool seeing it on other people's reading tables and at other people's practices. Out of this world. Okay, another cool thing I did, this is going to look like product placement. I swear to God, y'all, this is just literally what I was doing this month. I have a little bit of a story to tell about my keyword decks. So when I was working on Unlocking the Tarot, I updated some of my keywords, right? I kind of reviewed based on what was working, what wasn't working, what needed further refinement. And if you don't know, this is my book that I wrote for the well, and it just came out in October actually. So it was a big part of my month, but I refined my keywords, and I had previously used in my Tarot with Training Wheels course here on YouTube, which you can still access. It's up for free. In that course, I had used the Druidcraft Tarot, but then when I was writing this book, as I refined each keyword, I actually added them to this Rainbow Moon Tarot. And that was great. I had a hard time bonding with this deck. It was super fun, but sometimes the cards weren't immediately apparent what I was looking at, like which card. And see, it's all in order because I was just playing with it. And I absolutely love this Lover's card, but I never reached for this deck. It was great to have a reference deck to kind of pull with my personal keywords on it, but I found that it just sat and sat and sat. And so I asked myself, I think it was because other people were talking about like what decks they were going to use for Unlocking the Tarot to write their keywords on. And I can't remember whose comment it was, but somebody said something, and I realized that it would be more effective for me and more fun for me if I used one of my all-time favorite decks instead of a deck that I've kind of been middling about. So as much as this was useful and fun for me, I think I might be ready to retire this, because instead what I did is I pulled out a backup copy or a mass market copy I have of This Might Hurt Tarot. So some of you may know the indie version of this deck is an all-time favorite. It is my go-to like workhorse deck. I love it so much. But I have 3 copies of the deck. I have 2 indie copies. I have my main working copy, which is literally starting to fall apart. And then I have a backup copy that I was generously gifted. So I have an untouched, pristine indie copy. And then I have this mass market copy that I got in the Liminal 11 special edition box. So I decided to unlock. And so I literally wrote on the box, unlocked. Did I put it anywhere else? No, I put it just on the cover. I decided to unlock my This Might Hurt Tarot. And oh my gosh, y'all, this was so much fun as a mod. And so I cannot wait to shuffle it, but I didn't want to shuffle it all together until I had shown you what I had done. But I'm so excited because now I have an unlocked tarot, but in a deck that I really know super, super, super well. And I'm beside myself. I just love it so much. So anyway, what I did is I took a extra fine point Sharpie, the retractable kind, so it's quite fine point. And these are glossy. So I was able to, I think, in a couple places make corrections when I needed to. I can't. I think there was only one card I had to correct with a little bit of alcohol, because Sharpies are alcohol based. I mean, on super glossy cardstock, sometimes you can correct a little bit. But mainly what I focused on doing, let me just bring this up to the camera better. Mainly what I focused on doing was adding the keyword into the artwork. So rather than just putting it like on the bottom or something, like here I put risk, which is my keyword for the Fool, but I put it on this like forward leg. Whereas here on potential, I put it up here next to the arm that is drawing down energy from spirit. Or intuition for the High Priestess, I put it on the moon. And oh my gosh, y'all, I had so much fun with this. And like here I put authority up the side here, tradition down the center of his robes, or up the center of his robes, commitment over this couple here, and so forth and so on, right? And then when I got, like, look at introspection. I thought that was so fun. I put it under the lamp like that. It was really fun, and I was kind of inspired by the way that I had modified the Little Bug Oracle, which I've shown on the channel before, accountability, etc. But when I got to the court cards, I also did something kind of a little more interesting. Let me get to the Wands court cards. So if you don't already know, in the Unlocking the Tarot system for the courts, I do something really different. I give sort of a spectrum of personality, and I suggest that we assign a keyword for each end of that spectrum. And in order to conceptualize the card and just kind of intimately get to know it over time, that you name the card after a fictional character or maybe somebody from pop culture, like a really famous person, but not like necessarily somebody in your life, and then give the card that name. So what I did for the court cards, everywhere I possibly could, I put the name that I'd named the card after, as close to kind of above their head as I could. And then I wrote their more positive spectrum keyword moving from the bottom of the card upward, so an upward trajectory on one side. So here it's enthusiastic for the Page of Wands. And then the more shadowy keyword I tried to write on the other side, going down, so top to bottom. So here we have fanatical. So we have enthusiastic and fanatical as our range for the Page of Wands. And so here for the Knight, we have Indiana over the helmet, adventurous, which is the positive keyword, and then down here it's reckless, right over the motorcycle wheel. And so for the Queen, we have confident to arrogant, and then this is Daenerys. And then for the King, we have charismatic over the fire and manipulative going down here in the back, and then Xena. So I did that for all the court cards, and oh my god, it was such a fun mod. Otherwise you'll just find my regular keyword just somewhere on the card. Like here, grief is in the water. So there's another court card. Ten of Swords, I put finality down here under the blood. It was a really, really cool mod to do, and now I feel like I have my perfect unlocked deck. And so I spent some time doing this over the last month, and I wanted to share it. But that is my unlocked tarot. But I haven't worked with it really, truly yet. But the mod was a practice that I did in October, and I wanted to tell you about it. Okay, let's talk week by week through the decks that I was working with in a dedicated way throughout October. So in week 1 of October, I worked with, okay, these weren't supposed to have the same bag. There's a story. I'll explain. But I worked with the Bohemian Gothic Tarot. This is the most recent edition. And beside that, I worked with the Oracle of Oddities. I have the first, second, and third, and this is the keyword deck by Claire Mack. So there's also a deck she has that I feel like is more popular, which was called, oh gosh, I'm not going to be able to remember now. Memento Mori, I believe. Is it called Memento Mori? It is a Lenormand deck, but it's slowly expanded over time. And that deck has like titles, like what the objects are in the cards, whereas this one is more like anatomy and flora and fauna. Well, maybe just flora. Well, no, there's some fauna. And I love this deck. This is the first, there's like a first, second, and third. What is it called? Not edition. Think of them as 3 different parts, like 3 different types. What are they called, y'all? I can't words. Anyways, I bought all 3 and basically just went through them and took out any duplicate cards. There was actually one duplicate that managed to survive, and it actually came up in my member readings. I did use this deck in my member readings in October, and it just read so beautifully. I didn't use Bohemian Gothic in my member readings, but I did use it for myself, and I gotta admit, when I got this in, I had to put it away because I thought I wasn't gonna like it. And what happened with the bag is that I was using this bag for this is what my Oracle of Oddities has been living in. But now it's going to need a new bag because I realized it like perfectly matched the backs of the deck. Like look at it's perfect. It's literally perfect. So I needed a standard to put my main copy of this in. So anyway, Peggy whipped up a bag for me and humored me because she still had the fabric. Anyways, these two worked really beautifully together. So let me get the bags out of the way. And I had such a great time with these. I have to admit that this edition of the Bohemian Gothic, as much as I poo-pooed the cold stamping because I felt like it was distracting, I have gotten so used to it and it's kind of grown on me, I have to admit. And I loved how these worked together. I feel like they really, really harmonized well with one another. And I got great readings out of Bohemian Gothic, and I didn't really ever reach for the guidebook or the little pamphlet inside. I didn't need to. I felt like I got what I needed just from the artwork. And I don't remember it being quite that easy with my other edition of this deck. There were some art changes made in this one that I think just work much better for me. They kind of honed in on, I think, more of some of the more, maybe it leaned a little bit more heavily into the RWS in places where the deck had gone really, really different places, but I had a really great time working with this. It was probably one of my favorites of the, October I tend to love everything, but I really had a great experience with this, and I'm glad that I wasn't too hasty in letting this deck go because I ended up really, really enjoying it. And it's going to stay in that bag, but it's not my intention to permanently pair these decks because I love using Oracle of Oddities in a bunch of contexts, so now I need to find a different bag for this one so that they're not too matchy-matchy. But I did very much enjoy working with both of them. And the Oracle of Oddities, I feel like, is such a flexible Oracle deck and just pairs so nicely with so many things. Okay. The next week after that, I think, I might be getting them out of order, but I worked for a week with the Zombie Oracle, or excuse me, the Zombie Tarot, which is a longtime favorite. It's just such a fabulous deck. I love it so much. And I worked with this alongside the Zombie Oracle, which just lives in the bag with it. This is by our Orshi, and I believe she sells this through Make Playing Cards. But, I mean, the vibes are just... they're perfect. There's no better match, obviously, for this deck. And she has another Oracle deck, like a follow-up to this deck that she created. But I remembered seeing it at the time, and it wasn't for me. I like the vibe of the original. It just, the set of keywords just works really well with this deck. And I believe the second one introduces a little bit more, I want to say positive cards or more uplifting cards. This one tends to be a little bit more shadowy, but that works for me with the Zombie Tarot because for me, the Zombie Tarot has this kind of like weird silliness to it. And sometimes I can lose the heavy, which sounds weird working with a deck like this. You'd think it'd be quite heavy, but it has this like mirth and lightness to it. And I think having the Oracle with it just brings some of that depth and richness back into the reading, and I really end up enjoying it a lot that way. So I worked with these together and had just fabulous readings with both of them, as usual. I look forward to this combo every October, and I cannot imagine an October coming and going where I don't work with these. I don't really refer to the Zombie Tarot guidebook too much because I know this deck so well, but it is a really good little guidebook. So that's the Zombie Tarot in its zombie pinup bag. The week after that, I worked with just a tarot, no oracle, and it was the Boo Tarot by Celia Melville. Man, this deck is the freaking cutest. I'm gonna try not to be too repetitive because y'all have heard me, if you've been watching my channel for a bit, you've heard me talk about the cardstock. Mine's wavy. It just keeps the shape. I don't know how to describe it, but it is a very comfy shuffle. Because it is soft and sort of squishy. I've learned to befriend this deck despite the cardstock. It's really cute. I love the way that the messages come through in it. I always know what I'm looking at. And that was an issue for me with the Fox Tarot by the same creator. What was that called? Tarot Renard, which was also super adorable. But there was something about the titles on the cards that I struggled with. This one's got bilingual written out titles. So they're in both French and English. And I think I prefer that. I think the other one might have just had the French, the Fox one. Y'all, this is the cutest deck. And it's so fun to read with this time of year. I may actually cycle this back in. I'm tempted to cycle this back in November, actually, because it's so freaking cute. And I love it. And the majors have little sparkly accents on the ghosties. They're so cute. I love them. I love them. It's such a comforting, cozy fall deck. I love it. It's wonderful. I had a great time reading with it. And it never lets me down. Like, I can definitely get really good readings out of this every time. I cannot remember if I used this in member readings, but I don't think I did. I did have Zombie Tarot in member readings, and it was great. I mean, everything in the October member readings read well, like really well, because I picked decks I really love around October. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, every month in my Unicorn Fam channel membership, I host a live stream that usually runs anywhere from 6 to 8 hours, I don't think it's ever been 4 hours, not in a long time, but it's quite a lengthy stream. And I do readings for everybody who has submitted a question, and I usually have about 5 decks to choose from, 4 tarot, 1 oracle. And yeah, had just a blast, but this one wasn't in it. The Zombie Tarot was, though, and I believe Bohemian Gothic was. Yes, Bohemian Gothic and Zombie were both in my monthly member readings. All right, the next pairing I worked with in October, and this was so fun. This was such a fabulous pairing. I worked with Barbara Moore's Trick or Treat Tarot. Can we just yet again appreciate this bag match because it is like the most perfect it could possibly be. The Trick or Treat Tarot is so fun and fabulous because this deck manages to just be jam-packed with pop culture references, and they're so fun because of course there's all these costumes. So right, we have a Star Wars costume, we have Hocus Pocus, we have the, oh my gosh, I almost said Jack and the Beanstalk. What is wrong with me? Joker. Oh my gosh, that took way too long. I probably took out the pause for you, but for me it took a long time. Anyway, Little Mermaid. Like, it's so fun. And so you get the layer of the card itself, you get what's happening in the artwork, but then you can also play with that additional layer of whatever the costume is of. Like, here we have Tinkerbell and the Seven of Cups. Like, look at this. It is so fabulous. And I don't even necessarily know all of the references, but when I recognize them, it just is so much fun and adds just that other layer. Anyway, I'm babbling, I'm gushing, but I really love this deck. And I think it's got a lot more substance than you might think at first glance, because of course it's just a very well thought out deck. So it gave really, really good readings. But what I decided to pair with this is the Cowgirls and Aliens Oracle, because I was thinking to myself, like, fun, campy costumes kind of works with the Cowgirls and Aliens theme for me in my brain, and it ended up being such a fabulous pairing. And the way that I got the most cohesive messages, and aesthetically, I don't know that this is a pairing I would have thought of. Like, I think this would go great with the Zeke's Arcana deck, but I don't use the Zeke's Arcana that way. And so I decided to pair it with this. Oh my gosh, but I have to say, this had to be a standout favorite for the entire month. The readings that this gives are so self-loving and empowering and so hard-hitting in the best possible way. I love this. Don't sleep on this deck. If you're even curious, just check it out. It's mass market, it's rock pool, and it's so on the note, like, it's so on point. Like, here's the bounty hunter, and the card itself says, I will learn from future, and it says, I will learn from failure and become stronger. But then if you look it up in the guidebook, it goes even further. So what is this, the bounty hunter? Yeah, the bounty hunter. So it's got a little story bit, which is so fun. If you're into narrative elements, if you like story, like, this is fun. Stealthily hidden, she peers down into the camp. Her previous attempts to bring in this outlaw have ended in disaster, but she always patches herself up and tries again. This time will be different. She sees movement in the camp. Up in a flash, the outlaw is on his horse and escaping again. She whistles for her horse, jumps on mid-gallop, and speeds after him. Gaining ground quickly, she has him now. But now listen to this. The bounty hunter has been through it all, bringing in outlaws from across the star systems and collecting her rewards. It's a rough job and she has many wounds and scars, but if she fails, she picks herself back up and starts again. The bounty hunter is all about resilience. You will always have failure and disappointments in your life, and things may not always turn out exactly as you dreamed, but if you can learn from your mistakes, you'll be more capable and find success in the end. The bounty hunter is proud of her battle scars. Whenever things have gone wrong, she has gained wisdom and become stronger and more prepared for the next challenge. Now dust yourself off and go catch that outlaw. And then it'll have tips. Even though it hurts like falling on a cactus, failure isn't always the end. Learn all you can from it. Next time will be better. Try not to tie your entire identity into a single dream or goal. You are much more than that. You never know what exciting things will come up in your future. Every single time I pulled from this deck that week, I just had the most powerful readings, and it really, really surprised me just how good it reads. So super thoroughly enjoyed this one and really recommend it. I'm having a lot of fun with it, and it was one that was kind of sitting since I got it. Like, I didn't know what to do with it. And then I thought, well, I'll loop it into Halloween decks or Halloween month decks, and we'll just see how it does. And it's just been so great. So now I got to think about something else to pair it with that isn't so seasonal so that I keep pulling it out, because I really love this. This would actually probably do really well as a bedtime pull also. Okay, and then for my last week, I worked without an oracle, I worked with the Silver Acorn Tarot. This is so delightful. This is another deck that I think I would really like to work with maybe throughout, this would be another great November deck, I guess. It doesn't feel specifically Halloween. It does have those vibes. It's got lots of pumpkin heads and such, but it's more than that. Like, we see the jack-o'-lanterns, but we also have all these vegetables through the pentacle suit. And this is luscious, dreamy, beautiful cardstock. It's larger than a standard tarot, but it was, every time I pulled cards, and I did a lot of 3-card draws, like Energy Obstacle Advice, which is my go-to sort of daily check-in spread. I am so drawn into this artwork. Like, it's absolutely beautiful. It's charming. It's got a little bit of quirk and personality to it. And of course, it's the dreamiest shuffle, even if it is a little big. And I absolutely had such a great experience working with it. In fact, I wasn't sure when I was going to get a chance to film this monthly deck review video, and so I started carrying it back and forth, this deck, back and forth with me in my bag, because I didn't want to stop using it early in order to bring the deck, like, leave it at home and I wanted it with me so I could keep working with it because it was all the vibes I was looking for. I love the colors. I love the tones of it, the sort of darkness, but also there's something cozy about it. It's a very cozy sort of Halloween-y, October-y deck, and so glad I finally picked this one up, and I absolutely love it. Like I said, it's black core. It's just lovely. I love it. So that was a lot of fun and zero regrets about purchasing that one. Let's talk about one that I was a little underwhelmed by, unfortunately. The Horror Tarot by Todd Alcott. I love this premise. I was so excited about this to get this in. It's really, really fun, and it felt so on point for the month, and I did work with this a bit, but every time I tried to pull cards, I found that in practice, like looking at it and playing with it and like flipping through the cards was very exciting because each card has like either it looks like the front of a movie poster, or it looks like maybe the front of like a 1980s comic book or something. And what really attracted to me to this was the keywords that are sort of built into these posters or book covers. So here, for example, the King of Wands, vision, honor, leadership, ultimate masculine energy. That's great. But there's a lot where it's actually really hard to see what the card says. So like, for example, this one, the Suit of Swords, and this is the 2 of Swords. You can see number 2 up there, and you, of course, recognize probably the image. And then it says featuring indecision, dilemma, and potential risk. But these are so small that as much as I was attracted to the idea of this, I regularly found cards that I just had a hard time reading some of the subtext. Like these bigger ones are fine. Like here's the Lover's card, and it says love is grand, but it always leads to trouble. Down here, Horror Tarot presents the Lovers, a symbol of love, harmony, relationships, and choices. And so that one was fine. But then I got into some of these others. Here's the 8 of Pentacles, and underneath that it says The Apprentice, but it's quite small. I found this was just hard for my eyes. And yes, I should be wearing my glasses more. Listen, I know. But in practical use, if I have to work that hard to read the card, then the whole thing that kind of drew me to this deck the most, which was all these fun little phrases and keywords like built into the card, I wasn't able to make as much use of that as I thought. And for some reason, the cups don't have that. They have just the title, and then they have either like a movie cover or whatever, but like all the other suits, like here's one, welcome to the world of the emotionally balanced man. So the court card has it, but it was a little inconsistent. Like this was one of the cards I actually really loved, the Fool. But if you read all of this, it's all about the Fool, and it makes perfect sense. But I can't read it easily without either throwing my glasses on and really like getting it aimed just right, or using a magnifier. And so I think this is one of those decks that the aesthetic of it is right on point. If the words were bigger, you'd lose some of the design elements that make it look so cool. But the words being smaller just made it harder for me to bond with as much as I had hoped. So this one, like I said, it ended up working with it ended up not being as awesome and fun as I thought it was going to be. I still think it's a very cool, very clever, super fun deck. Worth having for sure if you're a collector of any kind, I think. But sometimes that happens. You know, you pick something up to check it out and you get really excited about it, and then you put it into use, put it through its paces, and are like, actually, maybe not. But it's really cool. A deck that I shouldn't like as much as I do is the Spoopy Tarot. I use this in member readings mostly as like my pip deck, and it was super fun. I really enjoyed reading with it. This is such a minimalist deck and so just frivolous and fun for me, and I love it. I love it, like I said, more than I strictly should. It is overly simple. Like it's like you could see these symbols from a mile away. Like it's like this is the opposite of the Horror Tarot. It's so easy. Like I could put these cards way away and see the number and see the title and see the pips. It's stinking cute. I have no excuse for myself. It doesn't have that many visuals to go off of, but there's something really satisfying about these like big glossy cards with like such minimal art on them. It was so fun. It felt really neutral. And actually for a pip deck, it does a surprisingly good job of having the pips sort of give a hint to the meaning. Like here even, this is the 4 of Wands. It's obviously like candy in this deck, but there's like little bits coming off both sides, which kind of brings you into that celebration energy. Or like here in the 7 of Vessels or water or potions or whatever it is, each one is different. So you can get that element of choice. So even though it's pips, like here you have the bones all the way around this skull, just like coming in on it, it does, and the bones are the swords. So it actually works really, really well. You see cards like this and you're like, this is so silly. Like, why did I spend money on this? But it's actually so clever and fun and cute. And it was honestly really a joy to play with it. this is not something that would be like a must have in my collection. It's not the thing I'd save, like, you know, if there was a fire, you know, that kind of stuff, but it's just so fun. And I really enjoyed it. There is a guidebook that is surprisingly in depth that I haven't spent much time with at all, because that's not why I got this deck. I got it for its just simplicity and fun. And when I'm doing my member readings, I always like to have a minimal or pip deck in the rotation for certain types of questions, and this served that purpose beautifully. So again, that's a Spoopy Tarot. And then finally, there is the deck that the Unicorn Fam channel members and I are studying for our deck study through October and November, and this is the Shadowland Tarot by Monica Podursky. I'm admittedly having a hard time with this one. I knew that was a very, very distinct possibility because I did have this deck before, and while I think that it's very clever, there's a lot of depth in the artwork, there's a lot of stuff going on, I didn't end up gelling with it long term when I had it the first time, and I did end up rehoming it. I picked it back up for the study, and there was a lot of interest in the study, and I think we're getting a lot of really cool bits and pieces out of the study. But for me personally, this deck feels like a homework deck. Like I'm definitely working with it, and I'm definitely getting something out of the study so far. And I'll have more thoughts to share in our wrap-up live stream we have for Magical Unicorns and Up at the end of next month, when I've really gone through the whole thing. But for me right now, this is, like I said, more of a homeworky deck. I have done a lot of like readings. We have certain prompts and exercises we're doing, and I have been enjoying the format of the study and the way that we're sort of breaking the deck down and working with different pieces of it. That part's been really cool. I think I don't know what it is, but I just find it hard to bond with this. I don't know, there's a barrier, and I haven't quite figured out what it is, but if I figure it out, I'll let you know, and I will probably have more thoughts on this for my November deck review, but that is the Shadowland Tarot by Monica Podursky. Okay, I haven't even fit everything on the table, but these are most of the things I worked with in October. Before I wrap this up, a quick reminder that Peggy's Sassy Dragons Tarot is currently funding on Kickstarter. I didn't include them in this review because I got these in near the end of the month, and so while I have been working with them, I'm going to have a lot more to say about working with them in my November deck review. These are prototypes of the deck. The Kickstarter launch party was incredibly successful and fun. It was so exciting. We funded this Kickstarter, in like 2 minutes. It was unreal. These are so fun. If you haven't seen these, they are decks with the meanings printed right on the cards, adorably dragonified, super, super cute. There's 2 editions, a classic and a not safe for work. The not safe for work is full of little swears. The art is super, super cute, but it is very true to the Rider-Waite-Smith deck. And the sassy one is full of, like I said, swear words, little naughty references. This is definitely adult humor in here, but it is so fun. And Peggy's voice is really all the way through this. If you don't know, I'm sorry, but you will know if you check it out. So the Kickstarter is running pretty much through the end of November, I think up until the 24th, I think. So you do have a bit of time yet still to back it. But very, very excited about this project. I will have a lot more to say on this as we go forward, but I did do a full video review, and there's a promo up on my channel with Peggy's words about the deck that you can check out. But very, very, very excited about these. I haven't worked them throughout enough of the month to really properly review them in here, but just know I'm obsessed. I love them. They're amazing. I had a lot of fun playing with all of these. I haven't decided to like necessarily let anything go. Well, is that true though? I might. I feel like the Shadowlands is in jeopardy a little bit, but we'll see. By the end of the study, I'll know for sure. And the Todd Alcott's Horror Tarot is probably a miss for me and may end up going, but we'll see. I don't know if I'm just going to immediately make that decision or if I'm going to sit on it for a bit. But overall, my experiences with the decks this last month were overwhelmingly positive. A lot of times during member readings, there'll be like one real miss for me, or at least a medium miss, and everything was just fabulous. I had a great time and got to play with a lot of things, and it was a great month. So overall, real good this month. So thank you so much for hanging out. As always, extra, extra big thank you goes out to my Unicorn Fam channel members. Please do, everybody who is watching, subscribe if you want to be notified of future videos and see more content like this. And until next time, y'all, may your magic always shine from the inside out. Bye!